For decades, there was really only one playbook in global politics, and it was written in Washington. But as the war in Ukraine redraws the world map, a rising power is starting to write its own chapters. The recent phone call between India's Prime Minister Modi and Ukraine's President Zelensky wasn't just diplomatic chit-chat. It was a quiet declaration of independence, showcasing a world where American influence isn't what it used to be, a reality that's seriously frustrating for a transactional leader like Donald Trump. So, how did India manage to place itself at the center of this diplomatic chessboard? And what does it tell us about the new world order? The war in Ukraine drew a sharp line in the sand. The West, led by the US, presented a unified front against Russia with sanctions and military aid. Washington's expectation that its allies and partners would naturally fall in line. But that unified front is starting to look less unified. Not because of a lack of will, but because we're in a multipolar world now, and major nations just aren't willing to outsource their foreign policy anymore. India is the perfect example of this shift. While it has condemned the violence in Ukraine, it has pointedly refused to join Western sanctions against Russia. This isn't just a whim, it's a balancing act rooted in decades of history and cold, hard national interest. A huge chunk of India's military gear comes from Russia, and when the invasion sent energy markets into a tailspin, India became a top buyer of discounted Russian oil. For New Delhi, this isn't about picking a side. It's about maintaining what it calls strategic autonomy. This independent streak was on full display in August 2025. In a major phone call, Prime Minister Modi spoke with President Zelensky, stressing India's desire to help find a peaceful solution. This was no simple courtesy call. It came just days after Modi spoke with Vladimir Putin and right before a planned summit between Donald Trump and Putin. Zelensky himself seems to be on board, stating that Kyiv is counting on India to help end the war. Now, reports suggest President Zelensky might soon visit India after a direct invitation from Modi, with both governments working to lock down a date. This move positions New Delhi not as a follower of Western strategy, but as a potential mediator that both Kyiv and Moscow might actually trust. It's a bold play that makes one thing clear. The road to peace in Ukraine might not run through Washington or Brussels anymore. It might just run through New Delhi. And you can bet this independent streak is causing some serious frustration in Washington, especially for Donald Trump. His America First foreign policy is all about the deal. He has already called out India for buying Russian oil, and he's backed up that frustration with action. The Trump administration slapped tariffs of up to 25% on certain Indian goods, a direct shot at New Delhi for its relationship with Moscow. This gets to the heart of the matter. American power has its limits. The US can still apply pressure, sure, but it can no longer just dictate orders to a country like India, which is busy carving out its own sphere of influence. Global polls even show a dip in positive views of US influence, leaving a vacuum that other powers are eagerly filling. India's diplomatic maneuvering isn't a bug in the system. It's a feature of a new, multipolar world, where America's unilateral leverage is fading and its frustration is growing. So what does all this mean? For India, it's a huge step. It solidifies its role as a leader of the global south and a major independent player on the world stage. By juggling relationships with competing groups, like the Quad with the US and Japan, and BRICS with Russia and China, India is proving that multi-alignment is the new non-alignment. For the United States, it's a wake-up call that the unipolar moment is officially over. Dealing with rising powers like India is going to require more negotiation and less dictation. Old pressure tactics, like tariffs, could easily backfire and push strategic partners toward rivals. And for Russia and Ukraine, India's involvement opens up a new potential channel for peace talks, one that isn't directly controlled by the Western powers Moscow is so suspicious of. It's a new piece on the board, and it changes the entire game. Modi's call with Zelensky was way more than just a call. It's a moment that captures a deep shift in how the world works. It shows us a planet where rising powers are charting their own courses, driven by their own interests much to the annoyance of the old guard. The era where one country could set the global agenda is fading, making way for a messier, more complex, and maybe even more interesting multipolar reality. And that leaves us with a big question. Is India's rise as an independent power a stabilizing force for global politics? Or will it just add to the chaos? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you want more analysis that cuts through the noise of geopolitics, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell.